Moses B. Feltner faced charges in several counties in Kentucky ranging from murder to attempted murder to contempt of court all at the same time. In addition, those same charges in those same counties would be brought against him several times. Now, a cousin of mine asked a very interesting question. What about double jeopardy? Well, in the case of Moses B. Feltner, there doesn't seem to be much of a legal out for him. However, like in all of the cases, we shall see that he seems to be made of Teflon because all of the charges do not seem to stick, or he was acquitted. Come along with us as we walk through the contempt of court and witness tampering charges laid against Moses B. Feltner. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this help fire up the time machine, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The first arrest made. Now, we have to backtrack a little here. Moses Feltner had previously taken off from the Winchester court with several other witnesses from the Markham-Hargis damage case. Feltner would not be a very easy man to track down, and only showed up later to testify by a written deposition. This deposition was discussed earlier in our video, The Breathitt County Criminal Trials, 1905, Part 2, The Testimony of Mose Feltner. But this would not be the only written deposition that Feltner would make, because he did not appear in person in the Markham-Hargis damage case. Judge Benton and other judges then made out warrants for his arrest on the charge of contempt of court and witness tampering. Sheriff McCord would be the person that would carry out this warrant. According to the Semi-Weekly Interior Journal article dated February 7, 1905, quote, Sheriff McCord and deputy returned to Winchester from Perry and Leslie counties with Moses Feltner and Sam Fields, who were wanted on the charge of contempt of court. The trip was uneventful and was made on horseback with the weather below zero. Both prisoners filed affidavits saying that they had left Winchester because they feared that they would be killed if they testified in the Markham-Hargis damage suit, unquote. We will get to the depositions in a little bit. However, in the meantime, let's look at this. Both men were to testify in the Markham-Hargis damage case. Both men surrendered themselves peacefully to the arrest warrants and the custody of Sheriff McCord. We have found more as to why they were not placed in the jailhouse, but other arrangements were made for the two men. According to the Bourbon News article dated February 7, 1905, quote, the prisoners took the whole story of the alleged bribes and threats, which induced them to leave Winchester before the Markham damage suit was called. Sheriff McCord asserts that Felix Feltner is shamming. Mose Feltner and Sam Fields have not been placed in jail, but under guard by Constable Pigg, trying to get bond. Feltner and Fields fear assassination and will depositions, which will serve in the trial in the event that they are killed before they are able to testify, unquote. What did these men have to say about these events that both of them made a deposition to stand in their stead should they be killed? This was their first act when they reached Winchester, Kentucky. What does that say exactly? It says to us that both men were definitely afraid that this would happen, that if they dared to show their faces in the courtroom, they would be dead. Did Sheriff McCord believe them, and that is why they were not placed in the jailhouse? That they were placed somewhere else for their safety, sort of like what we know as a witness protection program today. And let's talk a little bit about Felix Feltner. As far as we can find out so far, Felix was a cousin to Moses. To call him shamming means that he was being duplicitous or feigning his compliance. So what was he saying that didn't line up with the two men? According to the U.S. Archive, we did find where there was a record of these events in the court record. It does match up with the newspaper article. Quote, Feltner and Fields have engaged Bird and Juliet to defend them in the contempt cases, and Saturday they filed an affidavit denying any contempt for the court, and each alleging that he could prove his position by the other. Each further alleges that he believes his witness, as aforesaid, will be killed before April term of this court convenes. Witnesses asked for the privilege of taking the depositions of the other, which privilege the court granted. The prisoners were not placed in jail, but were consigned to the custody of Doc Pig as a special officer who is guarding them and with whom they are staying. The expenses of the guard and also their board is paid by the prisoners themselves. Later, they have been sent to jail. James Hargis and Ed Callahan have been granted an appeal from the verdict." Unquote. Moses Feltner's deposition. Going back to the previous video and the affidavit that was given in the court record, there was no wonder that the defense team did not want Feltner to testify. Not only was his testimony incriminating in that instance, but this testimony would be just as incriminating as well. When this was first printed in the papers back in 1905, it was truly shocking that a Kentucky state senator, 2 judges, and a sheriff could be caught up in such corruption in Breathitt County. According to the Adair County News article found in February 15, 1905 edition, quote, Feltner's deposition, sensational development in Breathitt County litigation. Louisville, Kentucky, February 8th. Quite the most sensational development in the litigation of the Breathitt County murders came out when the deposition of Moses Feltner, a witness, who left Kentucky after having been subpoenaed as a witness in the damage suit of Mrs. Markham against Judge Hargis and others for conspiracy in connection with the murder of James B. Markham, says a special from Winchester, Kentucky. Feltner's statement is to the effect that the attorney for the defense, B.F. French, offered him $1,000 to leave Winchester without testifying, and that if he did not go, he would be hanged for the murder of Jesse Fields some time ago in Breathitt County. Feltner says he accepted the money, went to Cincinnati, and turned it over to his brother, Felix Feltner. Later, he, Mose Feltner, was met in Cincinnati by Mr. French and was told to stay there where he was, as the warrants had been issued for him in many counties in Kentucky bordering on the Ohio River. French told him, according to Feltner's deposition, that his bond had been vacated in the Fields murder case and that a warrant would be sent to Cincinnati for him, but that he must not come back to Kentucky without a requisition. But, Mr. French told me, the statement continues, that Governor Beckham had promised him, French, that his requisition would not be issued until after the Markham Hargis case had been settled. French then gave him more money, and after spending some in various Ohio towns and Indianapolis, Feltner says that he concluded to return to Kentucky and give himself up as a witness. Lexington, Kentucky, February 9th. Moses Feltner will, through the Winchester attorneys, appeal to the governor for troops to guard him when he is taken to Jackson on the 20th to be tried on the charge of murdering Jesse Fields. As a result of startling evidence given in his deposition at Winchester, he fears assassination. Unquote. After spilling the beans about how he was paid off to leave the state and stay away until after the court had made its final decision, it is no wonder that Feltner was afraid. The Feuds were infamous for killing off potential witnesses, threatening the jury and witnesses, threatening judges, and all kinds of things. It is a pretty sure bet that Feltner felt that he was going to be killed if he did not, or if he did, testify. The amount of the $1,000 in 1905 money would be equal to $34,857.50 in February 2024 exchange. That is quite a bit of money to leave Kentucky and live in the state of Ohio during the time of the trial. It is not stated how much money that French gave Feltner during his time in Cincinnati, but it must have been a fair sum to cover his living expenses during that time. Added to this was the threat that should Feltner return to the state of Kentucky, that he would face charges against him for the murder of Jesse Fields. We are not told the reason why Feltner decided that it was far better to return than to live a life on the run. However, his deposition would be backed up by the statement made by Sam Fields in his deposition. A word about the relationship between Felix and Moses. We have found in several places where the men are called brothers and cousins. We have looked up the genealogy of both men and cannot say for certain what the relationship was. However, both of the Feltner men were wrapped up in this trial. That is why you will see us call the two men brothers and sometimes cousins, depending on how the article reads. In next week's video, we will be covering the deposition made by Sam Fields and what, if anything, would happen to Feltner for these charges of contempt. Would the charges stick or not? Do you think he should have been charged with the crime? Do you think that he left the state of Kentucky with the witnesses because he was afraid for his life or because he was given a generous amount of money? We will also see the charges leveled at Felix Feltner, as he would be the first man to face contempt charges. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian feuds. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click that bell notification button. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.